The thing about working security for someone like that is you learn real quick that silence has a sound. It's not peaceful, it hums. People think silence is just the absence of noise, but on Little St. James at 3 out in the morning, it had texture. There was always the generator running in the background, this low mechanical hum that got into your bones. The ocean was out there, but you barely heard it over that constant machine sound. What you really noticed were footsteps on Italian tile, expensive imported flooring that cost something insane in the main villa. At night, every step clicked sharp and clean, and sound carried in a way it shouldn't have. I was in the monitoring room when it happened. Screen 7. There were 38 cameras on the island, but I only watched 12 at a time. The system rotated feeds every 90 seconds, though you could lock onto one if needed. That night, I locked onto screen 7, and then I turned the monitor off. That was my first mistake, or maybe not the first. Maybe the first mistake was ever taking the job. I was former Navy, 6 years, then private security, executive protection mostly, Dubai, oil executives, real threats, kidnappings, terrorism risks, tactical driving, close quarters combat, threat assessment. I was good at what I did, so how do you end up on an island like that? Referral, that's how that world works. Someone you've worked with mentions your name, it gets passed along, and suddenly you're being called about a position in the Virgin Islands. They didn't say who it was for at first, just logistics, relocation, long stays on a private island, no traditional schedule. Then the salary came up, and that got my attention. Eventually I was flown to New York, Midtown office, upscale building. 2 people interviewed me, one lawyer type, Mr. Levin. The other was a British woman who introduced herself as part of the estate. She did most of the talking. Everything was about discretion, not my tactical experience, not my background. Just discretion. Had I ever kept confidentiality? Could I handle seeing things outside the mainstream? Was I comfortable signing extensive legal documents? They handed me an NDA, 47 pages. I remember counting. Penalty clauses were extreme, $5 million per breach. And breach meant almost anything. Talking to journalists, law enforcement without approval, writing about it, even mentioning employment in certain contexts. I asked what it was for. That's when they said the name, Jeffrey Epstein. I nodded like I knew it. I didn't, never heard of him at the time. They described him as a private financier, someone who moved in exclusive circles. I told them I was expensive, testing them. They didn't even blink. So I signed. I started 3 weeks later. The first thing I remember is the helicopter ride. You don't arrive by boat if you're staff. You come in from St. Thomas, maybe 10 minutes in the air. From above, the island looked like paradise. White sand, turquoise water, lush green everywhere. The villa was huge, Mediterranean style, right on the water. But then you saw the contradictions, razor wire in certain areas, windowless concrete structures beside open-air pavilions. It didn't make aesthetic sense. It felt stitched together. There was a building they called the Temple, blue and white striped gold dome sitting on a hill. I was told never to enter it, never ask about it, never mention it. I didn't ask many questions. At that point, I couldn't afford to. The island was divided into zones, public areas, private areas, restricted areas. My job was perimeter security, cameras, arrivals, departures. There were other staff I wasn't supposed to ask about. Rules were simple. Don't go south after 10 p.m. Don't talk to boat arrivals. Don't take photos. Don't ask about the temple. At first I thought it was paranoia. Rich people being eccentric. I even laughed once. Garrett, the guy training me, didn't laugh back. He just told me to do my job and not think too hard. 6 weeks later, he was gone. No explanation. Just a note saying he resigned. That was my first real lesson. Epstein visited maybe once a month, sometimes alone, sometimes with guests. When guests came, everything changed. Security tightened. Monitoring increased. The guests were the most disorienting part. Scientists, politicians, tech billionaires, academics, people you'd recognize instantly on television, people with reputations, people who talked about ethics and progress. But in that environment, they didn't look at you. You became invisible, like furniture. I started to feel like part of the architecture. There were preference sheets for every guest, room temperature, drinks, dietary needs, and sometimes one more line, staff visibility. Some wanted staff present, others wanted us invisible. After a while, it stopped feeling strange. That's the dangerous part. You normalize it. Then there were the visitors. I saw them first my second week. A small boat at night, lights off. 3 young girls, maybe early 20s, maybe younger. overnight bags, a handler. They were taken into the South Wing. We were told they were assistants or massage therapists. Temporary staff, that was the explanation. I wanted to believe it, because the alternative was worse. There was one night I was in the security office and a girl knocked on the door. She looked very young, blonde, wearing an oversized shirt. She asked for aspirin. I gave her some. She was crying silently. She thanked me and left. I watched her walk back toward the South Wing. I didn't follow her. I told myself it wasn't my job. She was an adult. She was there voluntarily. I repeated that until it sounded real, but it wasn't. She left on a boat the next morning. I never saw her again. Ghislaine Maxwell ran everything. She was the system, logistics, scheduling, guests, staff coordination. She made everything smooth. Charming, warm, remembered details about people. She made you feel included. That was the trick. She once told me, "We're a family here." I believed her at the time. Now I understand it differently. I once saw her walking with a very young girl toward the main villa. The girl looked terrified. Maxwell was smiling, speaking softly like a guide. I radioed in, unsure what to do. I was told to stay on perimeter, so I did. There were files too. I saw them during a logistics task. Boxes of documents, hard drives, DVDs. One file wasn't sealed. I saw a name of a US senator I recognized. Inside were photos, compromising images, notes in Epstein's handwriting, leverage potential. That's when I understood what it was. Not just behavior, control, documentation, a system built on leverage. There was an entire cabinet organized by year and location, names I recognized, ratings like high, medium, developing. I closed it. I said nothing, because by then I was already inside it. There were parties, what they called salons, intellectual gatherings. On the surface, science, technology, philosophy. Underneath, substances, exploitation, locked rooms, silence. People disappeared into private wings after midnight. Music, laughter, then nothing but the generator hum again. Once, a guest got drunk and started shouting about what he was seeing. He was removed before sunrise. I never heard from him again. Everything had clean-up procedures, lawyers, payments, threats, NDAs, bonuses framed as discretion rewards. Complicity was built in. The breaking point came years later, August 2009, Screen 7. I saw Epstein guiding a very young girl down a hallway toward a room I knew locked from the outside. She didn't resist, she just followed. I turned off the monitor. I logged it as a malfunction. I never fixed it. That was when I decided to leave. I told them I had a family emergency. They didn't fight it much. I think they already knew I wouldn't talk. I signed one last NDA and left with severance. I didn't tell anyone, not my wife, not my friends. I moved, tried to disappear into a normal life, but it never left me. Then in 2019, Epstein was arrested. I saw it on the news, relief and fear at the same time. I knew what came next. The FBI called me. 2 agents came to my office. They laid out photos. I recognized faces. I told them everything I saw. The island, the system, Maxwell, the files, the structure. They thanked me, then told me most of it was inadmissible because of legal complications, NDAs, and time. I was context, not evidence. That was the second time I failed. Later I was deposed in Maxwell's case. I gave my statement under oath, but I wasn't called to testify in court. They had enough without me. Watching the trial from home was worse in a different way. Hearing survivors describe rooms I had worked in, tiles I installed, spaces I monitored, it made everything real in a way I had avoided for years. My wife eventually found out everything. She asked me why I didn't go to the police. I told her I was afraid of the contracts, of powerful people, of not being believed. She said I protected myself instead of them, and she was right. Now there's distance between us. Not anger, just something changed that doesn't go back. I still think about Screen 7, about that silence, about how easy it was to turn a monitor off and convince yourself that not seeing something means you're not part of it. But you are. You're part of it the moment you choose to stay silent. I think there are others who should have been prosecuted. I don't just think it, I know it. Maxwell didn't act alone. Epstein didn't act alone. There were recruiters, enablers, facilitators, people who knew exactly what was happening and either participated or looked the other way. And most of them will never face consequences because they have money, power, and lawyers who can bury anything. I'm not just talking about famous guests. I'm talking about everyone. Staff, lawyers, accountants, pilots, the people who managed his properties. There was a whole ecosystem around Epstein, and Maxwell was just one part of it. An important part, sure, but not the only part. There was a woman who worked as a recruiter, not on the island, but in New York and Florida. She would find girls, usually from disadvantaged backgrounds, and introduce them to Maxwell or Epstein. She framed it as job opportunities, masseuse work, personal assistant roles, good money. She got paid per referral. I saw her name in files. I saw payment records. She was essentially a human trafficker, and as far as I know, she was never charged. Why not? Statute of limitations, immunity deals, lack of evidence. Take your pick. The legal system isn't designed to handle networks like this. It's designed to handle individual acts by individual perpetrators. When you have a conspiracy this sprawling with this much money behind it, the system breaks down. Maxwell was sentenced in June 2022, 20 years, and I thought I'd feel something when it happened. Justice, closure, but I just felt tired, because 20 years doesn't give those women their childhoods back. It doesn't undo the trauma, and it doesn't touch the bigger problem, that this happens all the time. Epstein and Maxwell weren't unique. They were just sloppy enough to get caught. There are other networks, other wealthy predators, other systems designed to exploit and protect, and most of them are still operating. I know that because I've worked in private security for 20 years. I've seen things, heard things. Epstein wasn't an aberration. He was just the one who got exposed. After the verdict, I thought testifying, or even being willing to testify, would give me redemption, like I'd finally done the right thing, even if it was late. But it didn't work that way. The guilt didn't go away. The nightmares didn't stop. I still woke up at night hearing that generator hum. I've never been formally diagnosed, but I probably have PTSD, hypervigilance, intrusive thoughts, avoidance. I can't be around boats. I can't watch certain films with islands or estates. My wife once suggested a Caribbean trip, and I had a panic attack just seeing the brochure. Therapy started in 2022 after I told my wife everything. Twice a week at first, now once a week. It helps in the sense that I can talk about it without completely falling apart, but it doesn't change what I did or didn't do. My therapist once suggested I was also a victim, the manipulation, the NDAs, the dependency, being kept in the dark. But I don't accept that. I had choices, hard choices, yes, but I had them, and I chose wrong over and over. There's a girl who once asked for aspirin. I think about her every day, multiple times a day. I don't know her name. I don't know if she's alive, if she got out, if she's okay. That not knowing is its own kind of torture. I hired a private investigator in 2020, gave him what little I remembered. He worked for months and found nothing. Too little information, too much time passed. If I could speak to her, I would just say, "I'm sorry. That's it. I'm sorry I didn't help you. I'm sorry I didn't ask your name. I'm sorry I sent you back." Do I think she'd forgive me? No, I wouldn't forgive me either. In 2024, more files were unsealed, depositions, flight logs. I couldn't avoid reading them. I found my name in a staff log, security detail assignments, even an incident report I had filed about a camera malfunction that wasn't really a malfunction. But there was something else. A survivor mentioned a security guard who gave her aspirin in the middle of the night. She didn't name me, but she said he looked sorry. I knew immediately it was me. That was worse and better at the same time. Better because she survived and remembered. Worse because I became part of her trauma story. I thought about contacting her, but my therapist advised against it. She said it would be for me, not for her, and she was right. Now I live in a small town in Texas, under a different name. I work in corporate security for a logistics company. Normal, boring work. No islands, no billionaires, no NDAs. I go to work, come home, have dinner when my wife is willing to talk to me. I go to therapy. I volunteer. I work with a non-profit helping trafficking survivors. I help with security systems and safety protocols. It doesn't erase anything, but it feels better than doing nothing. My nightmares are always the same. The hum, the generator, the monitors showing the same hallway, the same image, and me trying to shut it off but being unable to move. I have them a few times a week, worse around anniversaries. My wife and I barely hold things together. We sleep in separate rooms most nights. There's a distance between us now that I don't know how to fix. Some days she reaches for my hand. Other days she can't look at me. I understand both. She married someone she thought was good. Then she learned he wasn't. I wouldn't blame her if she left. Do I think I'm a good man? No. I think I'm someone who did bad things and is trying, too late, to do better. The island was sold in 2023. Part of me wants it erased completely. Another part of me thinks erasing it just buries the truth. There were tunnels, restricted areas, rooms I was never allowed to enter. I installed security systems in places I was told not to question, soundproofed areas, reinforced locks, no windows. I knew what it meant even if I didn't say it out loud. I told the FBI everything I knew, but by then Epstein was dead and Maxwell's case focused elsewhere. There are conspiracy theories about the island, some true, some exaggerated, some completely false. The problem is I don't know which is which. But I know this: Epstein built a system, a private kingdom of abuse protected by money, lawyers, and silence. And that's bad enough without anything else added. There are still sealed files. I think they contain names, people who participated, people who knew, people who were protected. And I think they stay sealed because those people still have power. If I could release everything, I would. Every file, every name, burn it all down, because secrecy is what gives it power. But I also know it would destroy innocent people too, people who were just present but not involved. And we are past the point of clean outcomes. Still, part of me thinks the truth should come out anyway, even if it's messy, even if it hurts. If I could go back, I would call the police, I would record everything, I would expose it all, but I can't go back. All I can do now is live with what I didn't do. I want people to understand this wasn't one monster, it was a system. Dozens of small decisions by ordinary people that added up to something horrific. Pilots, accountants, lawyers, security staff, people like me who stayed silent. What do I say to survivors? I'm sorry. It's not enough, but it's all I have. They are stronger than I will ever be. They came forward publicly, told their stories, fought for justice. I didn't. I stayed in the shadows. Maybe this story is my way of easing my conscience. Maybe it doesn't change anything, but I want people to understand something simple. Silence has a sound. And if you hear it in your workplace, your community, your life, don't ignore it. Don't turn off the camera. Don't look away, because someone, somewhere, is counting on you to be braver than I was.